Well, it's a random Tuesday in October, and a new iPad mini just dropped, was just announced this morning via press release. And of course, that means that there is a brand new iPad mini website that we can analyze and check out from a marketing and a web design perspective. So that's what we're going to do. I haven't seen this site before, so as a professional web designer and marketer, you are going to get my live reaction to it. My name is Logan Crockett. This is the Marketing for Normal People YouTube channel, and let's get into it. So right here is the apple.com homepage, newly updated with the iPad mini announcement. And so they're highlighting the iPad mini right here at the top. It is available for pre-order. So as of today, it was just announced, but it's not actually available to buy. Other than this pre-order button, I'm assuming that the website that we're about to check out will be pretty much totally consistent throughout the life of this particular model of iPad mini. Now we can see right away, hello Apple Intelligence. So we can see that, this iPad mini is definitely going to be capable of Apple Intelligence. I don't believe that the previous iPad mini was, and so that'll be a selling feature, but what else are they going to highlight? What else will make this a compelling product? I definitely love Apple products. I have owned several iPads over time. And so let's see if this, can appeal to me at all, but let's also just kind of see what interesting things they're doing on the website, and some of the reasons for that. And we're gonna learn some stuff and have some fun. So let's go ahead and click Learn More right here. And all right, we have, oh, I like that little animation there. That's clever. So this is the iPad mini, hello Apple Intelligence. So it's interesting that they're using that tagline across so many different products that are capable of Apple Intelligence now. And so, okay, so if we scroll down, okay, so does it go back? No. So that animation, it folds out, but it doesn't reset. So if I refresh it, okay, so as soon as I start scrolling, does it get, okay, oh, okay, so there's the hand and then it goes. I like that fan. I think this is a great product image. Sometimes, having a website, of course, is really good and really important, but one of the most prominent things about your website is that initial impression, that initial product graphic. This, I assume, is the main highlighted product graphic, not only on this website, but probably in other press material and other marketing materials. And so I think this looks really, really good. After Apple releases, I don't know how many iPad minis they've had. They've certainly had tons and tons of iPads at this point. But how do you make it appear distinct from previous models? And one thing that, oftentimes, especially on iPhones, they'll change the wallpaper, and so it looks a little bit different from that perspective. But doing something unique with a product graphic is definitely, just compared to like a previous release, is definitely a way to get into people's heads. Hey, this is something new. I really like this. I really like this product graphic because, first of all, they're showing us the back of the device too, but we're seeing a lot of different things that you can do with the iPad all in one graphic. And that seems really, really compelling. It's a way to summarize what is going on with the iPad mini. Anyway, big lesson from that is whatever product you're releasing or whatever your business is about or whatever you're building a website for, make that initial product graphic something compelling, something that makes sense, and especially on a sales page, don't skimp on the product graphic because that's something that's really going to stick in people's heads. This hero section, so that's what this whole area is called. Before we scroll down, it's called the hero section, and that is definitely the most important part on your website. If you are going to spend extra time on anything on your website, do it here. All right, so I love what Apple's done here. I love this so this graphic right here. So again, it fanned out. I'll refresh again so we can see it, but we're going to scroll down and then we have this animation goes open. I love that. But this sticks. So this is a sticky element. So it's not scrolling with the page. The rest of this is scrolling. This is not scrolling. I think that's really, really brilliant. On stuff like this can be hard to get responsive, meaning as like the actual size of the web page or device changes. There's not much room above this graphic. So it can be tricky, especially if you haven't done this kind of stuff before, to get that really dialed in, so that way it looks good across multiple sizes. But yeah, Apple's done a fantastic job in this case. And I also like, if you've seen some of my other videos reviewing some Apple product websites, I've complained a lot that Apple has been often creating sections on their website where you have to scroll too far, either above or below, in order to see all the information at once. I really like that here, no matter where you are, you are getting the important information all in one view. So you don't need to scroll up or down to see part of the image or part of the text. It's just showing you one important piece of text at a time. I think this is a fantastic way to start a sales page. I really, really like this. So yeah, so it clearly includes Apple Intelligence. We got the A17 Pro chip, portable powerhouse. Real quick, just out of curiosity, let's see. I don't remember what chip is in the iPhone 16. I want to say that it's the A18. But let's confirm that. They have a lot of cool animations and they're really great and really compelling, except when you're trying to get to something really fast. Then sometimes they slow you down. And so that's an important little thing to think about sometimes. All right, let's see. Camera control. Where's the chip? I know they're going to talk about the chip. They always talk about the chip. Maybe there it is. Okay, so A18. So yes, so the iPad mini is indeed one spec chip lower than the iPhone 16 Pro. I'm sure that the price point, we'll look at the price point in a bit, but I'm sure that the price point of the iPad mini is quite a bit lower too. And that's a good little product strategy for Apple to recycle last year's chip into a new device. And the iPhone 15 Pro is capable of Apple Intelligence, so all of that makes sense. But yeah, interesting. It definitely is, even though you're getting Apple Intelligence and all that. In theory, the lifespan of an iPhone 16 Pro might be a little bit longer than an iPad mini, but we'll see. Anyway, so it is using one year's worth chip ago. That's an interesting sentence. But they're using the 2023 chip, basically. All right, Apple Pencil Pro. Okay, so that's the new Apple Pencil that was released with the iPad update. I believe it was somewhere in the first half of the year, a few months before WWDC. So the Apple Pencil Pro, it looks like that works with this. I wonder if that means that they've changed the camera orientation on this device like the other iPads too. We'll have to find out. All right, 4 gorgeous colors. Cool. Single-handedly awesome. Okay. Sometimes Apple, they like their puns and their plays on words and all that. This, I really, really like this. Single-handedly awesome, because it's awesome, but you can use it single-handed, and single-handedly also just means like kind of on its own, standing alone. It's awesome. That's a really, really good one-liner. I love that. And having, man, like, and that's that. Compared to the other iPads, this is the selling point of the iPad mini. You can use it single-handedly. It's so easy to hold. It's so much lighter. Like I said, I've owned many iPads over the years. iPads are great, but the main issue with using them, in my mind, is that they're just heavy. Like if I put them on a stand or anything like that, totally great. But if I'm using them in any sort of like to read or something like that, a Kindle is so light, but an iPad compared to something like a Kindle is way heavier. And so the value proposition of an iPad mini, where it's just a much lighter version of an iPad, even though you're giving it probably battery life and screen size, the value proposition of an iPad mini is that it's light. And I love this line, single-handedly awesome. If you can come up with a short line like that offers a significant value proposition for your product, then absolutely do that. That is a great move. All right, now we're getting the pricing. $499 or $41.58 per month for 12 months. Interesting, because I believe that with the iPhone pricing, let's check out here. Yes. With iPhone pricing, they typically get it to 24 months. But for this, it's 12 months. And so I wonder what their financing difference, what the reasoning is for the financing difference there. But yeah, I'm definitely a big proponent for paying in full as a consumer. But I know that a lot of people will pay monthly, and sometimes, and what I would argue is a financial mistake, people just pay too much attention to the monthly price and not enough attention to the total price that they're paying over time. And so anyway, so it helps, because this is 24 months, it makes the iPhone 16 Pro look like a better deal at $41.62. And sometimes people, kind of like a car payment, people pay too much attention to just that small monthly price. But anyway, so yeah, interesting that this is about the exact same monthly price as the iPhone 16 Pro, but because it's for 12 months, it is effectively half the price. But yeah, interesting that they're not doing like $21 for 24 months. That's just interesting from a product sales strategy perspective. All right, big screen attitude, ultra portable design. I like that because again, we're losing screen here because it's an iPad mini. But they're like, hey, it's still, it's got that big screen vibe. It's certainly much bigger than an iPhone. So I think that's clever. I also like what they're doing here with, on some of their other iPhones and things, they've been using this multicolored, very Instagram gradient-esque text for Apple Intelligence. And so they're using that similar kind of gradient right here. But I like how they're throwing in this cursive mini font. I think that works really well. And I like that it works really well for the actual iPad mini logo. I'll call this the logo, even though that's kind of the logo. The product itself doesn't necessarily have a logo. For your own products, there's pros and cons to using a logo or not using a logo. I typically like it, but we'll call this is probably, I assume that this is the logo, the product logo that would be shown on the box. So I don't know why they don't put it there, but it's okay. Regardless, it's a good little just design cue that they're going to probably reuse over and over on the site. That's my assumption because it's here. So we'll see if that continues to pop up. All right. iPad mini has everything there is to love about iPad. And it's recycled, cool. And an all-screen design, and it goes anywhere with you, fitting perfectly into a backpack or purse. So, I love that. That is a fun little animation. I really, really like that. So yeah, so this one resets, unlike the one above. So if I go above, all right, reset again. Yeah, that's a fun little animation. I like that. So typically you can do that in a couple ways. A lot of times if Apple's using a video, they have a pause button. My guess is that is still a video file, but it might not be. It might be an animation that's made up of multiple still images, but that's a lot of images because that's turning very, very smoothly. So just looking at it from a web page perspective, I'm not sure if that is a video file or if that is a whole lot of images moving very, very quickly. But I could look at the code later, but not super important right now. The important thing is just there are lots of ways to do animations, and from a user perspective, that cleaned up very, very nicely and looks really, really good. All right, so we got our liquid retina display, true tone, all that stuff. We have 500 nits peak brightness, P3 wide color, true tone. So basically, okay, and I don't mind that. I feel like, because from a reader perspective, I read these things: True Tone, P3 wide color. I can use my tongue, and then we have ultra low reflectivity. But anyways, so most of those things are repeated here. It doesn't look like they have the 500 nits of brightness. But in this case, I thought going down here and seeing these are little blurbs with icons and headers and descriptive text. Typically in web design, we'd call those blurbs. But I would put them next to the text and not make them so far away. Again, like I said, I often complain about Apple not showing you everything in a single section without scrolling. This is one of those examples where I'm scrolling too far, and so I can't read this and this at the same time. And so I'm not realizing as a user at first that these are repeating what I already read up there. That would be more obvious and just have better communication flow as a reader if it was next to each other. You don't want too much text altogether. You definitely want to break it up visually, but having these three kinds of blurbs next to a very short paragraph like this would be perfectly fine. And I think that would work a lot better. I like that they're labeling the app that's being shown. I think that's really cool, actually. And I think they did that here too. Yeah, Procreate. I haven't seen that on other product pages. I think that's really nice that we actually see what's inside. Because in all fairness too, for instance, we sell a course that teaches people how to use how to set up a whole marketing campaign, but in light of that, it shows people how to use some specific software. And so when people purchase a product like that, even though we're clear about it up front, sometimes people are like, oh, I didn't realize that, I have to pay more money to get this other thing. And I get that. And so I think it's important to be clear, but also like it's hopefully for the typical person, certain kinds of products, it's obvious for that. Like if you go pay the fee to go out on a golf course, you're expected to either rent clubs or bring your own clubs, things like that. Like a lot of times you need more stuff than just a single purchase in order for that purchase to work. Now with an iPad, you can of course just use the built-in apps, and there are free apps. There's lots of things like that, but I do appreciate, I think it's just a nice touch to be like, hey, like we're showing you Photoshop, and they're not specifically saying that Photoshop is paid. A lot of people know Photoshop is paid, but even though things are common sense, you want to be careful assuming that everyone fully understands common sense, or as some would say, have not lived under a rock. But regardless, I just like that people can see what's specifically highlighted here, and all this stuff isn't just, automatically included in the iPad. And so if people want to see, oh, what actually is that? I just think that that's helpful to be more clear about what you're actually seeing in the iPad, and they're not taking credit in the same way for, all these app experiences, because Apple hasn't built all of these app experiences. So I like them highlighting Procreate and Photoshop and things like that. Okay, here are the 4 colors. Now on the iPhone pages, this is the same of the iPhone 16 as well, but they actually give you this little widget here to play with the different colors and to actually like spin it around and stuff. This is just showing you the 4 colors. I can't, with Apple's budget, I would be surprised if they cut that for any sort of budgetary reasons or even time reasons, because they can plan, they can plan a website for a while before a product launches. But yeah, I'm a little surprised that they don't have a widget like that, because if they believe that that's valuable, for the iPhone, then why wouldn't you do that for the iPad as well? I think you can clearly see the colors here, and I think that they could get away with something like that on the iPhone page. But even so, again, just whatever market research they've done, assuming that this is something valuable for the consumer, then I don't know. And they clearly already have the technology. Like they've already built it out on different iPhone pages. Why not just do it here? Because Apple's very consistent from web page to web page. So I'm curious why they wouldn't be consistent with that. Also, another interesting thing to note, Apple on everything here. Let me, let's see. I think it was on their AirPods too. Let me see. So if I click on AirPods, if I scroll down, then we have here, get the highlights. So we have this highlights section with these little panels to click through. And so that's here on AirPods. That's on most of the new product releases. And, you can see it right here too, get the highlights here on the iPhone 16 Pro. Interesting that they're not doing that on the iPad mini. For pretty much all their recent product releases, even their low budget ones, they've been doing that, but they're not doing that here. And in all fairness, this Apple Intelligence, A17 Pro chip, portable powerhouse, Apple Pencil Pro, limitless creativity. This communicates a lot of those highlights in a very succinct, simple way. And you're seeing a lot of what the iPad can do just with this product graphic. I think that this is honestly substantially better than this. I think that these highlights, in a sense, get in the way. They're a little bit too busy. I think that this is a way better way to handle it. And so I will applaud Apple for that. What I will not applaud Apple for is, I don't know if you just saw it on whatever device you're watching this video on, but for some reason, and it might be because of where I was on the page and from flipping tabs, oh, did it do it? Okay. It has something to do with the tab, with clicking out and then clicking on. But you'll see there's now extra hands behind here, and you can see all these other iPads. There's this little corner of an iPad right there. So I don't know what's up with that, but yeah, Apple is clearly something glitched. And I'm on a modern Mac, I'm on an Apple Silicon Mac, and I am on Safari. So we're not doing anything fancy here, but their own website, just that's a pretty serious glitch. that looks bad now. And so always interesting to find those kinds of things. And so, of course, when you're coming out with your own website, make sure you test it. In all fairness to Apple, I've seen plenty of other websites that have way worse glitches than this. So let's refresh and see if that goes away. Okay, so we're back to the main animation here. So if I scroll down, then there's that. Let's see if I can repeat it. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to click back. Okay, it didn't repeat. Interesting. Let's try it again. Nope. Huh. So I don't know what triggered that. I guess I could watch back on this video and see exactly what I did. But anyway, interesting to see that, yeah, that, even Apple is not above website glitches. All right, now, I like this Apple Intelligence animation. That's very good. Once again, I really, really love that they're showing the specific features of the highlighted app. So they're talking about using Image Wand inside of Notes. I think that's really, really good. So yeah, and here we go again. That same gradient, that same cursive font. That highlights things so well. They want you to know that Apple Intelligence is private and powerful, but personal is for sure what's going to stick out the most. And especially when people are skimming a page, and most people are not going to go over it in some will, but most people are not going to go over a site like this thoroughly and read every single thing. We're doing it because we want to analyze the whole thing, but most people are not going to do that. Most people are going to at least skim parts of it. And so just having something highlighted like that is definitely going to help draw the attention for people who are skimming and scrolling through quickly. All right, and here's kind of what I was talking about earlier, is how video files often have that pause button, and in this case, a replay too. So anyway, I like that. I think that works really well. Apple does a very good job overall on most of their web pages. Not all the time. And in some of my other videos, I show some examples where they are not communicating very well with their product images. But most of the time, Apple communicates ideas very, very well with a lot of their graphics and animations and video files that they have on web pages. So I applaud them there in most cases. All right, we have some writing tools. So it's really highlighting what you can do with Apple Intelligence. So my guess is that this is mostly going to be an iPad mini, but now you can use Apple Intelligence. And so here's all the cool reasons to get this iPad mini instead of older ones. So yeah, so they're if you're familiar with other recent Apple products, or if you've been paying attention to their Apple Intelligence stuff, all this would be a review. But plenty of people, the average consumer, would have no idea. So I feel like they're doing a good job of highlighting it. So one of the coolest things, I really like this, where they're putting all of the focus on this cool Apple Intelligence feature with Image Wand, but then they're just simple short paragraph image. Though they're doing it through the traditional every other staggered approach. So paragraph image, paragraph image, paragraph image. And I like that they're showing it in both landscape and horizontal orientations. I also like that in this case they're showing it with the case. I think that, even when you're mostly focusing on Apple Intelligence, you're still showing different elements of your product, and you're still showing some versatility. And I think that that's really good. So yeah, I think that this is great overall. We have, ways to express yourself visually. We have ways that Siri is more helpful, all kinds of good things. All right. And then they're highlighting Apple Intelligence. Now in a lot of, sometimes on different Apple web pages, they have kind of different tiles and things set up. I don't see this kind of style a ton on some of Apple's latest sites. I like this a lot. This just draws a lot of attention. So if you have like a pricing section, or a guarantee, or something that you really, really want to highlight, sometimes testimonials, using a card style div. Div is the proper HTML term for basically just a container on a web page. This is great. I think that this looks really, really good. It just helps highlight, helps draw attention to something. And it's just, a lot of people with AI, they're concerned about their data, all that good stuff. And so Apple wants to really, really drive home that they are protecting privacy. I like, again, they're using that same gradient, that Apple Intelligence gradient, and this is just a really, really simple card. Again, just graphic and text, but yeah, looks really, really good. I think that is awesome. All right, we have our cursive font again, A17 Pro, so now we're talking about the chip. It's the Pocket Scientist. I like that. That's clever. Sometimes Apple and those puns, man. All right, we have the 6-core CPU and the 5-core GPU. So this is a good example of features versus benefits. People naturally don't care that much about whether it's a 6-core CPU or a 5-core GPU. So how does that actually help? And so if your product features something, your power users might understand the benefit that gets them, but make sure the benefits are more clear to your users who might not be as tech savvy or might not be familiar with the lingo. And so just saying that it's up to 30% faster and 25% faster graphics, that helps, at least even if people don't even hardly know what about the performance is faster or what about the graphics is better, it at least gives people, okay, like it's clearly a good bit better than whatever they're comparing it to here. And Apple does include these little postscripts often. That was for, okay, so we have the, compared to the iPad mini 6th generation. This is so interesting that they're calling this the A17 Pro version versus the 6th generation version. I'll come back to that, but that's very, very interesting. Okay, where were we? We are way far down. All right. Here we go. All right. So, but anyway, just regardless, like that helps communicate that it is better than the previous device. And so in this case, they are comparing it to the device right before, it looks like. And so anyway, great there. I believe that the iPad mini, was there a 7th generation? Or is this the 7th generation? Yeah, so this is the 7th generation. So yeah, so they're comparing it to the iPad mini right before, which is great. And I want to highlight that because Apple often compares iPhones and other devices a few generations back. They'll compare an iPhone 16 to an iPhone 14 or an iPhone 12, but they hardly ever compare like an iPhone 16 to an iPhone 15. And so the fact that they're doing that with this is good. And that means that, you know, there's some legitimate improvements there. Now, how much does that actually help your apps? You know, you'll need to watch people performance test it on YouTube to really know that. But we're definitely getting some level of legitimate better performance. So that's great. And they have this little basically bolded text right here. It's not really bolded. It's just a darker color. Apple does a lot of their body text as a little bit of a lighter color, and then they use a darker, basically just a straight up black as more of a pseudo bold. But you know, my eye is drawn to this ray tracing feature, and so indeed this iPad should be able to do ray tracing, which is great. All right, so this is a specific game. Again, I like that. If we look at the iPhone 16 Pro, let's just find an example of an app. I mean, any of this stuff, video recording, this, like, you know, this is just their standard, I believe it's their camera. See, I don't even know. It looks like their camera app, but it's in the audio mix. Anyway, I'm not going to spend any time on that. But the point is like, I really like that they're showing what each app is, because it actually is a little tricky to identify on a lot of other things. So yeah, that's great. All right, Apple Pencil Pro, engineered for limitless creativity. I really like how this looks against that black background. That's really, really nice. Interesting that, okay, fun fact, y'all. I didn't realize this until just now, but this text right here is all standard text. You can see I can easily highlight one character at a time. This is actually not text then. This is open image in new tab. For some reason, that's very confusing. I guess, like, okay, if we zoom in, I don't know how well we'll be able to see this. So it gets really pixelated, but there's a whole lot of like little shadows, kind of like the top of the R here. It's just shadowed behind it, and then I don't know how well you can see that because, again, it's really pixelated, but like they're doing a lot. It's not just text with a gradient. They're doing a lot more with shadows and things. Typically, now the danger of doing this kind of thing is, and you can use alt text, and there's some kind of ways around it, but Google search engines are not going to crawl your site and identify this as text. So if you ever have important text that you are actually rendering as an image, this is an image right here. And if you ever have important text that's rendered as an image, then search engines are not going to crawl it as text, and that they need to crawl and see the text because that's what informs what keywords are on your website, on your web page. So that way they know how to direct people searching for different things. So that's very that's surprising that they wouldn't, and that even though there's these shadows, there would absolutely be a way. I'm sure it's complicated, but there would absolutely be a way to do this with even with a font, with just more of a kosher and appropriate method with web design. Using images for text is typically like a kind of a cop-out method. But yeah, these are all images. So that's very interesting. And so again, the reason they're doing it is because this isn't just a simple font there, because you can just make a font. If you can just put on a web page a cursive font and give it a gradient, that's not terribly hard. I should definitely make a tutorial on how to do that actually. But yeah, that's not particularly hard. But with the shadows, they're just with this Apple Intelligence kind of visual that they're going for, they made it more complicated than perhaps they needed to, because I can't see any of those shadows like here in any meaningful way. But yeah, when you actually zoom in, you can see them. So yeah, they're making that an image. Interesting. When you do that, and if you're putting it in line with other actual text, yeah, it's really, really important to make sure that it looks seamless and that the space is the right size and that the font size, like the height of it, pretty much perfectly matches. So yeah, you got to be really, really careful if you're doing that kind of stuff. But yeah, Apple opted to do that in this case, and so that is interesting. All right, Apple Pencil sets the standard for how drawing, painting, handwriting, and note-taking should feel, and now you can use the Apple Pencil Pro. So now I'm assuming that means, like the other iPads that support Apple Pencil Pro, that you can no longer use the Apple Pencil 2 and some of the others. So yeah, I wonder if they'll say anything about that. All right, this is the first kind of tile with arrows. Sometimes it's called a carousel that I've seen. I like this little replay the animation. Even I don't even think that they handle it like that on here. Yeah, they have, like, you can reset the whole thing, but they don't have a button to just redo these individual animations. I'll make sure I'll watch it through. Okay, it stopped. Yeah, so there's no button here. I like that a lot. This website is just a touch newer, but I like how they're doing that. I also like how these are grayed out. I think that's great. So these are just, less prominent. Oftentimes that's done by making them semi-transparent. But yeah, it helps, even though you see all three of these cards right here. Making these grayed out really helps draw your attention here first, but then I assume we can click. Okay, so we can click over and then that goes. Interesting. Okay, so it's always putting the active card all the way to the left of the screen. And so we can click. We can also use the arrows. Yeah, I was complaining about how some of these cards were working before and how you would click the arrows and it would be totally unnecessary because you already see the whole card and everything. This section is substantially better. I think that this is great. So yeah, so I don't know if this is the new trend that they're trying, if this is kind of what they're going to do with web pages moving forward, or if this is something they're just doing specifically with the iPad mini. But regardless, this works a lot better. Again, if you've seen some of my other videos, you know that I've complained about that. And so yeah, this, props to them. That looks so much better. All right, iPad OS and apps, fun and done. All right, so once again, we're seeing the iPad in different orientations, and some with the case and that doubles as a stand and all of it. So yeah, I like it a lot. I just like that the visual aesthetic of it. I like this, how they are showing three different iPads, but then they're showing the text. That they have 2 paragraphs of text in this case. I think that also on this page, again, compared to some of the other web pages that I've been checking out recently that you can find videos for on this channel, I feel like on this particular web page, they're doing a way better job of balancing different elements. A lot of the other web pages have just fell off with balance. putting text very far to the left and having nothing on the right and things like that. This whole little section feels very, very well balanced from a visual perspective. Certainly as far as left and right and spacing and all that good stuff. So yeah, I like that. Oh, okay, so this is a scroll animation right here. So it's not just triggered by getting to a certain point of the page. It actually, every little minuscule movement of my mouse triggers the animation. Basically, this is a parallax effect. So we have, this might be a background image, like this iPad, this iPad, this iPad, and this iPad might all be a background image, and then this might be, like these four might be floating on top of it, and so you do a Z index. You don't need to worry about that. If you aren't familiar with Z index, I have tons of tutorials to show you how to use stuff like that. But the point is that there are just specific methods that are common in web design that allow you to set things on different levels of layering, basically. And so these iPads, these four iPads, are scrolling at a faster rate than the others. And that just has a really, really nice effect. I love this grid. This is a very well done website. Yeah, this grid looks awesome, and it shows you all kinds of different things that you can do with the with the iPad and all kinds of different apps that you can use. And once again, they're all labeled. I love that. I love that. I love that. Good job. This one's great. Again, this on a balance level, great. I love this blurb. I'm just, some of these other web pages have been good, but some things about them haven't been my favorite. This one is really, really knocking it out of the park. So, yeah, good for them. Upload, download on the road, so you can get it with 5G connectivity. It also has super fast Wi-Fi, wonderful. And then we have the USB-C port and files. All right. So yeah, so just again, a few more ways to highlight some cool things that you can do. I like this. Sometimes those switching from section to section, you don't need to do anything super fancy, and they're just going from, it looks like all this is just white, and they're kind of using a gradient to turn it into a subtle gray. I believe that's what's happening here. And so it just becomes this subtle gray at the bottom, and then we have white again. And just clearly, even though it's a very subtle effect, it clearly indicates that we're moving on to a new section. And so yeah, so granted, typically you'd want a header over here, but I guess it kind of, like, here's the main feature, and then here's kind of more stuff about it. But regardless, they want you to know that this is separate. And again, they're doing your staggered approach. Very, very common in all kinds of websites. All right, we have the ultra wide camera, ultra fun possibilities. Okay, so yeah, it has center stage and all of that. The wide back camera. Okay, so the ultra wide camera is their front camera. That wasn't clear to me. I wish they had said that. Yeah, that was, sometimes it's called a selfie camera, but that wasn't clear to me at all. So I'd be probably a little bit more clear there. They call this the back camera, but yeah, they're not calling this the front camera anywhere. So yeah, that's, I would just put in some kind of language. Okay, I guess they do say front camera there, but yeah. But they're talking about this specific, anyway, I feel like just having it there, I didn't see that for a while. So anyway, that's a very, very small thing, but just a little thing to think about. As people are reading your website, what are they going to pay attention to? What are they not? Because yeah, again, in that dark color bold effect text right here, they're saying, hey, this is the back camera. I think that is exactly what you should do. And I think they should do something just like that for the front camera. All right. So yeah, it's 4K, 12 megapixels, true tone flash, improves photos in low light. Improved document scanning. I do like to use iPads for document scanning, and this is a feature that they typically don't talk about for iPhones, even though you could use an iPhone to scan documents. But yeah, that's good to know. All right, use AR to, okay, this is interesting too, because I also commented on these other pages that I did. So yeah, so we'll go back to the iPhone 16 Pro, which, is their flagship product, but they don't have the AR, like view this product in AR, which they've been doing on all kinds of their web pages for a couple of years now. But anyway, but in this case, they do have AR on the iPad mini. Strange that they would take it away from their flagship iPhones, and keep using it on the iPhone or on the iPad mini page. That's very interesting. Now I can't do it on here because a Mac is not capable of AR, but as it says, if I were to use Safari on my iPhone or iPad, I could do it. So but yeah, interesting that they kept that around. All right, talking about environment, talking about privacy, accessibility, accessories. I like this. When you have a sales page, you'll notice that outside of when I'm at the very, very top, I have this, your main menu. And then when I'm scrolling down, they get rid of all that distraction. And that's what you want. You want to always, any chance you can, get rid of distraction, help people focus. If they're clicking on iPad or tech specs, then they're staying in the buy the iPhone or the iPad mindset. And so that's what you want. You don't want them clicking all over onto other things. You want them just doing the main calls to action that will actually lead them to the decision that you want them to reach, which in this case is to pre-order your product. But yeah, you'll also notice that outside of like this, learn more about cellular for iPad, and that does take you to a different webpage. Oftentimes Apple will use, whoa, kids. Okay. Once again, oh, you know what it is? It's because I zoomed in here, and so it remembered the zoom setting. That's what happened. So this is now a way to zoomed in webpage. Let's undo that. Okay, Command 0 will get us back to 0 level of zoom. Okay, that looked really, that graphic looked really, really bad, that zoomed in. And fun little fact, you do want to make sure that your images and graphics on your website are at a very, very good resolution for the size that it will actually render. Typically people aren't going to zoom in, but yeah, you don't want them too big. You don't want extra pixels that you don't need, because that will help. The smaller you can make your image, the smaller your image size, the better your page will load. That's one of the biggest culprits for slow page loading. And so, yeah, so that looked really, really bad zoomed in, but there's good reason for that. So that, yeah, they're following best practices there. Okay, so anyway, so yeah, other than that link, and I was surprised that took you to another page, because, and this probably takes you to another page too. Yeah, they haven't had too many external links, but I haven't seen any. Apple used to all the time do these, click to learn more about this, click to learn more about this, click to learn more about this, and it would show up as these pop-ups. That was super popular even just in last year's devices. But it looks like on here, I haven't seen a single pop-up. And they've been keeping the links away. So, you just want to keep people, again, when they're in that buy the iPad mindset, you want to keep them right on the page, paying attention to your material. You don't want to give them reasons to leave, because if you give them reasons to leave, there's a much greater chance that they will not come back. Even though it's as simple as clicking the back button, people get distracted for a myriad of reasons. And so when you have them where you want them, which in this case, if you have them on the sales page, that from a business perspective, that's exactly where you want them. You don't want them to leave. Now, when you're getting to the very, very bottom of the page, it makes a little bit more sense. Okay, if you want to check out these more nuanced, specific things, you can go ahead and go to another page for that. Because at this point, they're like, all right, you've learned pretty much everything we need you to learn about the iPad. Products are sold through education. Sales happens via education. If your customers don't know why your product is valuable, if they're not educated on that, then they're not going to buy. And so even if maybe people aren't immediately clicking the pre-order button or the buy now button, just getting people to go through your whole web page, that is a huge win from a business angle, because people are now educated, which makes them much more likely to purchase now or in the future. All right, so yeah, we have these accessories. I like this little product graphic. Again, the balance here, there's just a visual balance. It's a lot better than I've seen on some of their other pages. All right, you can trade in your current iPad and get credit towards a new one now, or you can find your trade-in value now. That's a good little call to action, real simple. I like it. Which iPad is right for you? So here's their comparison. And so we have that little new badge right above iPad mini, and we're comparing it to the other iPads. It is always interesting to me, a lot of their other devices, I mean, right now, the iPhone SE is their smallest iPhone, and that's the cheapest iPhone. But yeah, it is interesting to me that they really like keeping the iPad mini for whatever reason. And even when they released the iPhone minis, which had the same mini moniker, the same mini name, they would that out of all the like new iPhones that they released at the time, so this was for the 12 and the 13 series, those were the mini version of the phone. That was the cheapest version of the phone that you could get. But yeah, for the iPads, for whatever reason, they like keeping the iPad mini at a more expensive price point, with the $499 price. In that case too, I would move this. I don't know why they have the iPad mini on this side. I would move the iPad mini here. I mean, it does visually, climb, and that kind of looks good, I guess. But it doesn't climb in terms of price. So actually, it kind of makes it seem like this one might be better just from a visual hierarchy standpoint. But the problem is you don't want people only spending $349 on this iPad. You want people spending $499 on this iPad, or maybe upgrading to the iPad Air if they're not into the mini form factor. But you don't want people getting you don't want people looking at this and being like, oh, I should get this instead of this. So I would, just by positioning, that's one of the easiest cues, just how a web page is laid out in terms of the order of different things. People assume hierarchy based on position. And so I would absolutely just move this there, so that way people get the sense, which is the appropriate sense, that this iPad is more valuable and feature rich than this iPad. All right. And so we're doing some comparisons here. So I do want to see supports Apple Pencil Pro. So yeah, so they didn't mention it anywhere up top, but yeah, it looks like this, all the new iPads except for, again, this cheaper one, now support the Apple Pencil Pro, which means that they, with the Apple Pencil Pro, they're dropping support for the Apple Pencil 2. So that's interesting. So that is important to know. If you already have an Apple Pencil 2 and you get this iPad, you're not going to be able to use that Apple Pencil with this iPad. So just, some important things to consider, that, yeah, I feel like it's tricky because you don't want to highlight negatives too much on your sales page, because there's no real way to present that as a positive, and it makes sense why they're not compatible from a technical product level. But just regardless, yeah, it's a tricky thing to figure out. What do you communicate, what do you not? If you do have something negative like, hey, this is no longer compatible with this thing, how, is it worth communicating that? You certainly don't want people to buy it, assume that it's compatible, and then return your device because it's not. And so you definitely want to get in front of that. So I don't know, there are different ways to handle that, but yeah, just interesting that Apple has definitely chosen not to specifically share that. Okay. It's also interesting that, clearly this has, I don't even know what it is. They're not explaining it here, but it has, we got another little dot. Maybe, is it just a flash? It might just be that it has a flash. But, both of these cameras only have 2 dots, and this one has 3, which makes that one seem better, but they're not explaining specifically what that is. Now, one big drawback of this iPad that's interesting is that they've switched all the other iPads to landscape position, but they are keeping this as portrait position, as more the vertical orientation. They're keeping the camera on top. Maybe there's a technical reason for that, but yeah, I think overall a lot of people use their devices in landscape mode, and a lot of people are doing video calls with people on computers, and pretty much every computer is in landscape mode. So yeah, I think it was a good move for Apple to switch their iPads over to landscape mode, so that way it looks good like that, and then you don't like awkwardly see someone's eyes like in the corner when you're trying to talk to them. But yeah, interesting that they kept that one in portrait. I feel like I wish that they had switched that, but they didn't for whatever reason. All right, and then no special keyboard supported. It's a much smaller device than the other iPad, so that makes sense. But yeah, it can support Bluetooth keyboards. Okay, so that is the entire page. Now, another thing that's very interesting, which I actually like, I mean, we just have this pre-order button. Maybe it's possible that they'll add this after the pre-order's gone, but I don't think so. But yeah, on pretty much all of these new devices that they have released recently, they have first of all, they have this little button at the bottom that shows them that you can compare all iPhone models. They don't have anything like that here, though I guess pretty much all the main iPad models are already here. But the other thing that they don't have is this, basically this how to buy, why Apple is the best place to buy AirPods. And then up here, why Apple is the best place to buy iPhone. And then all these different options about save with Apple trade-in, pay over time, interest-free, Apple, your one-stop shop for incredible carrier deals. And so, of course, AirPods don't have carrier deals, but they're still highlighting, pay over time, interest-free, shop live with a specialist. So all these different calls to action related to purchasing. I think that that's very valuable, but I like that this is a lot simpler, and it's just like, I would at the bottom here though, my goodness. So yeah, so there really is no buy button call to action. I would put very, very similar to what they did with this card right, where was it? Right here, this. I would make a card like that, and I would just, have a little bit of text and then a big blue buy now button. And I would I would end my page probably before, really for most sales pages, though the way that a lot of marketer circles will teach it is that you want the buy button in a few different places. Especially when you're really, really reliant on online sales, and maybe when it's a launch, a limited window launch or something along those lines. For Apple, because they do so many sales in other capacities, I understand why they might not feel the need to have so many buy buttons. And granted, you always have this button in the corner, but that is easy to lose. Your buy button is your most important call to action. And so they don't, again, at least on here, I don't like how there's just so many options. I think that overwhelms users, but you can click shop iPhone right here and stuff too. But yeah, I think that's not the best call to action, but at least there's something, and it is at the appropriate place on the page. It's towards the bottom, but they don't have, but yeah, other than, you can find your trade-in value and things like that, but they're not actually giving you a specific buy call to action. I mean, you do have shop iPad right here, which is sort of what they have over here, but at least, again, I don't love how overwhelming all these different panels and all these options can be. I would put on an iPhone page, I would put the buy now button big right there, and then I'd have these options show up on the next page, maybe as small things in a sidebar or something like that. But yeah, this I would just have a buy, and in this case a pre-order, because the iPad isn't officially released yet. I would have a pre-order button like right here, either above or below this section. But yeah, you do have these, but that's small. And also at this point, what you're trying to do with a sales page is typically whatever sales page the user's on, you are assuming that that's the thing they want, that they're clicking on that because they kind of want to be convinced to buy. You justify purchases they make all the time. And so sometimes people are clicking on a sales page because they already want it. That's a good thing from a marketing perspective. If people already want it in advance, and then what you're doing on the sales page is just like, yes, you want this. Here's why. You're helping them convince themselves that this is something that they want. And so a lot of the time they're there because they want that particular product. But when you give people options like this, and I'm not saying don't give people options, but when you're giving people options before you're giving a clear buy now call to action, I would just have like some sort of thing right here, like right above this trade-in section. It just says, basically iPad mini is the greatest iPad mini ever. Get it now. Or even, you could have a specific call to action during pre-orders for, be the first to get it, something like that. And just a big buy now button. I think that would increase their conversions quite a bit. And typical, like a bunch of marketers, all kinds of companies have done studies and A/B tests on this kind of thing. And absolutely, study after study has shown that conversions will go up with that, with at least having a call to action. Then there's lots of ways to tweak the call to action to make it even more likely that someone will click on it. But Apple in this case, they don't even have one. So that kind of, other than this tiny little thing right here, this shop iPad, I guess kind of counts, and these kind of count. But anyway, I would have a buy now little section right here. And then maybe you could talk about trade-in and a few other things. And then you can, I would even do buy now again. I would repeat the buy now call to action, maybe tweak it, make it a little bit different, but include another big button with some other basic value proposition. And then I'd be like, is this, explore other iPads? Because if they want to keep going and continue down the page, that means that from a user, on a user level, they are not quite convinced yet. They are not completely convinced that they want to buy this. And so from a business angle, you would then want to say, okay, maybe that wasn't the iPad for you, or do one of these other iPads fit you better? In many cases, it will or it won't, but when you give people other options that aren't the main product that your whole sales page is about, it's okay to do that, but I would always do that as like the last thing on your page. And again, that pretty much is the last thing on their page here. They're just missing a proper call to action. This does not count. That's the whole point of what I'm trying to say here, is that this does not count as just okay, we're at the bottom of the page and here's the call to action to buy it. No, this is a bad way to do a call to action because it's overwhelming to give people choices. You want to give people choices if they want choices, but you only want to give them those choices if they've already if they've passed on your main offer, or if they're a little reluctant, then you want to show them some other choices. But they're literally not giving you, other than up here, and probably at the very, very top, is there nope, there's not even, oh. This must be a non-animated version of the page? So weird. I don't know I don't know if, I assume Apple didn't just update this, but they must think that maybe I'm on a less capable web browser right now or something. But this is different than the page that we just saw. When we first opened up this page, all these call outs were all we're all scrolling above this iPad mini graphic, but now they are not. So that's interesting. So this is just a simpler version of the web page. And when you are doing technically complex things on a web page, it can be a good idea to have a simpler version of it. But yeah, let's try refreshing and see if it comes back. Let's scroll up to the top. Okay, yeah, it's back. Anyway, that was very interesting. I don't know. Oh, but the other animation isn't working now? It's not like having the Apple Pencil come up and having it fan out. So weird. This is a bit of a buggy website. Again, I am as down the middle of the road as Apple could possibly want. I'm just using Safari on a modern Mac. So if it's going to work on any device, it should work on this one. Anyway, very interesting. So I like a lot of things about this webpage, a lot. I just wish that my main critique, there were a few other small things. My main critique would be that they just don't have any sort of strong call to action here at the bottom. Again, I don't think this is a strong call to action, but at least, and it's overwhelming in its own sense because it gives you all these different options to purchase, but at least on the iPhone pages and a bunch of their other products, they're making it clear, okay, now it's time to buy, here's how you can buy, let's move forward with the transaction, basically. But here, they're not even doing that other than down here in this comparison table, but that is not where you put a call to action. I do not know how they thought that was a good idea. Anyway, that might have some purpose for it, but in traditional marketing circles, that would not be recommended. But yeah, that is the entire iPad mini, page. One thing I will note, actually, let's see real quick if I type in iPad OS 18. So this should give us compatibility notes for what iPads it works with. iPad mini 5th generation or later, that makes sense. So they're not specifically mentioning this iPad, but obviously this new iPad mini would be considered part of the and later. However, it is interesting that they have officially, to my knowledge, considered this to be like the iPads. It's always been confusing. It's been helpful with things like the iPhones. Granted, they used to have like 4S, 5S, 6S, etc. But they have, at this point, they're pretty much just consistently being like, okay, the iPhone 14 series, 15 series, 16 series, they're just updating the number every time there's a new series of devices. With the iPad mini, they are not doing that, or they haven't done that really for any of these. You know, it's the iPad Pro, the iPad Air, the iPad, and the iPad Mini. They haven't given them numbers, and so it's a lot more confusing to even know which one it is. And there's probably a couple reasons for that. They introduced new product lines within iPad at different points, and so it's like it might be weird if this is like the iPad Pro 7 and the iPad 17 and stuff like that. It just might, you know, people might assume that this one's better when it's not. And so I understand that it could be a little confusing, but that's, they've done a good job with the iPhones, with the normal, and then the Plus, and then the Pro and the Pro Max. So I don't know why they don't do that with something like this, but I think it would be very helpful just to give a clearer indication of which model this even is. That also helps resale value, which ultimately only helps the value proposition of Apple products. But anyway, if we go down here, where were we? So 6th. Okay, 10th generation, 6th generation. There we go. So yeah, so this is that, you know, little 4 subscript that we looked at before, but, you know, it said that they were comparing this iPad to the iPad Mini 6th generation. So to my knowledge, they always call the iPad Mini, the previous iPad Mini, the iPad Mini parentheses 6th generation. And they are, it looks like, to me, it looks like they are calling this the iPad Mini parentheses A17 Pro. So that's interesting. They might, even though it's not really super consumer facing, they don't like to share the numbers or the generations of iPads for whatever reason, which again, I don't like that, but I'm sure they have their reasons for it. But it looks like kind of more on a back end level, like if you're ordering parts for something, or if you need to check if something's compatible, or like over here, if you want to make sure that your iPad OS is actually, you know, going to be compatible with the model that you have, they need to specify which model you have, and it's also in your in your settings inside of the settings app on your device. But anyway, so yeah, so again, they don't use these names very much, but they do need to differentiate devices. And so it's very interesting that they have chosen to have the 17 Pro as something different, or that they're not calling this the iPad Mini 7th generation. They're calling it the A17 Pro, at least right here. And so we'll see if they stick with that. We'll see if they don't end up calling it the iPad Mini 7th generation somewhere else. But it might be the case that they're just going to name iPads based on the chip that's inside of them moving forward. So that would be an interesting little change if so. Anyway, that's just a little extra fun fact, but yeah, this is the iPad Mini webpage. And once again, okay, I don't know what happened, but I just scroll up to the top and that animation's gone again. Maybe it times out for some reason. Very, very interesting. So yeah, so go ahead and go to this webpage yourself and see what it looks like for you. You've seen a couple different versions, including some bugs and some other things on this hero section, this top section on this webpage. So yeah, go and see what it looks like on your end. But yeah, I'm just going to scroll down through, give us one last look at this webpage. Eventually this, whoa, that was a very fast scroll. But yeah, eventually this webpage will be taken down because they will be releasing a new iPad Mini. And when that happens, they are, you know, you're not going to be able to access this site anymore. So I like that, you know, we've looked at it, and so we know what this website was at this point in history. Anyway, there is the iPad Mini A17 Pro site. So that is what I've got for you there. That wraps it up, and that is the first look at the brand new iPad Mini sales page. What did you think? What stood out to you? Did I miss anything? Leave a comment below. I love making videos like this, and if you want to see me analyze in depth the iPhone 16 Pro website that I kept referencing, go ahead and click right here for the full video on that. And if you want to learn how to make your own ultra affordable website with animations and scroll triggers and modern graphics and all of that, you also need to make sure that it sells and converts, and I will show you how to do that in my free marketing crash course. To get it, go to marketingfornormalpeople.com or click or scan right here. All right, catch you later.